and then be followed by Sebastien Auguste, who's an LMS administrator from our team as well, and he'll show you and go into a deep dive of the course. And then we will finish off with Shayanne, who I know most of you have met, and she has some questions for some special people on kind of tips and tricks of hosting and facilitating virtual workshops. So we hope that this is useful to you. So again, I'll do a quick intro. There'll be a deep dive into the course, a quick Q&A, a few next steps, and then an open Q&A for questions that you may have. So first, a brief introduction. So just a few kind of key points about this course is that this is a singular course to which all institutions will be added. So you will not have an institution-specific replica course or instance of the course. This course is really to be used as a repository for the updated HIV materials that can be used to lead virtual workshops, and as well as, didn't mean to have these all be different, a variety of materials which learners can access. So there are pre and post surveys for the individual modules for the knowledge quizzes, their registration survey, learner materials, feedback survey, as well as their certificate. And then anything that you have that's specific to your institution and information on your course, like the calendar and such, that will be shared. You should share that differently. It won't happen in the course, but you could share that over a different mechanism like email or WhatsApp. This is really just kind of a place to access all of the materials from which you can pull and create your own virtual workshops. In addition, we have some tips on like how to schedule some things that we've learned. So first, it's really nice to do a little bit of an intro session with all your learners. So this could be, over Zoom, doing an icebreaker, asking a silly question, what's their favorite dessert or something like that. Just to get to people talking and knowing each other to hopefully inspire a conversation further on in the module. It's nice to space out modules over multiple days. It is even, in an in-person workshop, but particularly over Zoom, there is a lot of fatigue that happens. You can't be on Zoom for 9 hours straight. So it's nice to have a couple of days over which to space out several of these modules. It's recommended, but of course, none of these are requirements, but just little tips. That, probably one module per Zoom meeting, space it out, make sure to have nice breaks in between. We've had some teams say that they've done 3 modules in one day, and that seemed like a little overwhelming, a little bit much, but you should do what's best for your team. And in addition, make sure to really build in a break every just 60 to 90 minutes so that people have time to rest, get a cup of tea, and get a little bit of time away from the computer screen so that people aren't super tired and fatigued from all the Zoom, and they can keep interacting well. And then I just wanted to go over the slides. You'll recognize these from Tuesday's presentation from Shayanne, and just wanted to re-highlight some of the information that she gave on the virtual workshop. So this is that, of course, the goal is that these are mostly synchronous. You're hosting essentially an in-person workshop over this virtual media. So either through Zoom or some other mechanism. And that, you're sharing all materials and learners are working through these modules together, quote unquote, in person, but at least in real time with the rest of their cohort. And then with materials, again, we'll have all of the materials in the course from which you can pull what you need. And so many modules we now have the updated versions of, but there are a few which it'll take a couple of weeks before we can get those updated materials onto the course. Right now we have them up as the version the last version, version 2.0. So you can use those if those are ones you want to start with, but we will have the updated materials of everything up there within the next couple of weeks. And of course, the STRIPE registration survey, the pre-post quizzes for learners, and the post-course survey for learners are available on this workshop as well. So any learners that are learning and running through modules through a virtual workshop should access all of their surveys in the virtual workshop course on the LMS. We'll also, of course, have the facilitator guides and the answer slides and any of the learner handouts available on the course. There will also be a post-course facilitator survey that we ask your training team to fill out after, at the end of all of the sessions, at the end of the training time, so that we can get some understanding on how, this may or may not have been helpful and what we can do for the next version to make it better. And of course, this is where the learners can receive their certificate of completion for the virtual workshop. So just highlighting here, the virtual workshop course will not host any institution-specific material. So things that you provide, like PowerPoints that you want to use for your learners, any country-specific pre-readings or other additional resources, the Zoom link, the calendar, the schedule, all of that should be communicated to your learners outside of this course. Email, WhatsApp, however you would like to do that. And lastly, just a brief reminder on responsibilities and one way that we expect who should be doing what to make sure that things are split up and taken care of. So I hope that that was useful, and if not, we have a Q&A at the end to answer any ending questions for that. And now I will hand it over to Sebastien, who will go into a deep dive of the workshop and what it looks like and how you can navigate it.
Thank you, Maeve. Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastien Auguste. I'm going to share my screen. What I do ask of you is that once I do share it, just confirm that you can see it. You can write into the chat, or throw a thumbs up, just so I can confirm that you can see the my screen. Perfect. Thank you. So thank you, everyone. What I want to go over is the STRIPE virtual workshop. What you see here is the main page when you first get into the STRIPE virtual workshop course site. On the left-hand side, you'll see that all of the different modules are available so that you can go through them individually. And you'll see here at the moment, I'm in the overview page. Now, once you go into any of these modules, and I'll click through a few of them just so you can see, we provide you with the title, a summary of what's happening in this specific module, the objectives, as well as additional information. We provide to you as well resources. We provide to you as well resources and also pre-course activities. Now, something to highlight is once you've registered for the STRIPE virtual workshop, it's imperative that you complete the STRIPE registration survey. This is necessary to get certification at the end of this course site. Now, as you see, we can move through to the next module, and you'll see that each one is similar. You'll be provided with a general idea of what's happening, the title, as well as the case and other information. So you'll see here, you have a pre-knowledge quiz and a post-knowledge quiz. And then from there, you'll have resources that are available to you. Now, something that I want to highlight is that on the left-hand side, next to the specific area I'm in, module 1, you'll see that there's an asterisk. That is letting you know that this is a module that is required to receive certification of completion. And you'll see that they have this same asterisk under module 1, module 3, module 4, and module 17. So remember, these are required to receive certification. Now, as you go through these, it has the same structure every time. All the information will be provided in this instance, so you can click on any of this information to either download it or review or view it in the window. Now, as I go through these, if you have questions about how this works, please don't hesitate to let me know. Now, the good thing about this course is that you can view it from, you can access it from either your phone, a tablet, or a laptop as well. So if you have an internet connection, you will be able to access this course and go through this content. And as we're covering all of these different bases, another aspect that I want to highlight, because we did talk about the registration survey, having that complete, you have to make sure that you also complete the the last section. So you'll see here, there's an option called post-course survey and certificate. Here, you'll see that the post-course survey is available to you. We ask that learners and facilitators complete those surveys, their specific survey, and that once you've completed those, you will be eligible for a certificate. And you'll see that below each thing that is necessary or important to be done, there'll be highlighted information. So for example, here under module 17, we have an area that says completion of the survey is required for the certificate of completion. So you'll see information highlighting the key areas that need to be completed before receiving that certificate. The other thing to remember as well, and I'll go up to the top just so we can see that, announcements here is available to you. So if there's any updates or posts that are sent here, when you first log in, you'll see that at the top of the page. So this could be information on if they're going to have a live session, they may provide announcements there. If there's any changes or things that they need to let you know, they'll send these announcements that will stay at the top of the page for you to view. One of the areas that we like to highlight as well is posting an introduction. So this is a way for you to communicate and build a community with the others who are taking this course as well. So we recommend going into the session, introducing yourself and providing the information that we request, just so that you can find comrades in your area as well. And that is it for the deep dive of the AFREhealth course. Are there any questions?
Yes, Sebastien, it's Mariki here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I posted it in the chat also. There seems to be one PDF document there under resources for Zoom guidelines. There are actually three. There are one for participants and one for facilitators, how to use Zoom. And then there's this third document, which we covered in a webinar in the beginning of April, how to actually do STRIPE HIV interactive online. So I can't really see what's in there. I just wanted to know,
Yes.
make sure
Yes.
all of them are there.
Yes. So in the resources area, there is one guide, Zoom guide for online interactive workshops. And then there's also instructions on how to join a Zoom session that's available. And then we'll provide as well another document, I believe, at a later point with the facilitator version of it. So all of that will be added to the course site.
Okay, I think I'll just send all the documents that Sunstrap developed to maybe to Maeve.
Hey, Mariki, I just want to highlight that those additional documents that are really only helpful for facilitators are in the facilitator training course. And the one that you saw was the PDF that's available for students. So that was the purpose of that.
And then there's a third one. but
Right,
we
so
can
those
talk
are
about it
both in the
outside
facilitator training course.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
No problem. Okay, any other questions? Please write it in the chat.
There
Yes,
are
hello,
two hands
everybody.
up.
Oh, sorry, yes. Whoever would like to go first.
The lady can go first.
Abigail, if you'd like to come off mute.
Okay, so this is Onesmus. I had given her the chance, but I think she's not seized the moment. I wanted to find out, is there a way that it is configured so that the quiz is done before the survey? Because looks like the survey is the tail end or the final of that module. Is it configured in a way that one does the quiz before the survey? Thank you.
Yes, so the registration survey, they'll need to, will be the first thing they'll have to complete. The pre and post surveys are in each of the modules, so they can't skip through and just go straight to the end and do that post course survey until they've completed the course. With the post course surveys, what we've done is the pre-course survey is available to them and they can do that, but they can't access the post-course survey until they've completed the pre-course survey. And I know there was one other person that had a question. Wait, I'm sorry. Onesmus, did I answer the question or did you have?
I have a question, please.
Okay.
I don't know whether you are the one who's going to answer about it, but it's a general one in terms of how long will these modules be available in the net for us? For how long? Is this year or indefinitely, or when? Until when?
Sebastian, I can jump in here. And actually, I think I'll probably ask Mariki to speak to this too, but we are building, so AFREhealth and UCSF together are building this site to outlast STRIPE. And we also envision that this course will live on as a legacy course. Mariki, if you'd like to comment.
Yes, indeed, we would like to do that. At the switch over of the end of September, there will probably be some criteria for people who have access as sort of paid up members and institutions, but we will definitely be taking it forward. Thanks for that.
Oh, thank you so much, Marike, for that answer. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Alfred.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm going to suggest
to ask.
Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask the schools of nursing, especially the ones who've come on board this year, delivering these modules physically, because that's the nature of how they are conducting their training. Could you speak a little bit to the fact that this is the virtual platform and maybe how best we could utilize this, despite the fact that the training will actually be physical for most of at least the schools of nursing? Thank you.
Maeve, would you like to take this?
Sure. So from what I understand, the best way is that they can have access to the virtual workshop course. And then this way they have access to all the materials that they can download and either, print or use on a device for whichever is, preference for them. This is also the course through which they should complete all of their surveys. So we won't have, additional Qualtrics links, or the quizzes and such will not be on the website. If you can only access the quizzes through either the virtual workshop or the online course. And so if somebody is going to complete in-person trainings, then the virtual workshop is where they can access all of their materials and quizzes and ultimately get a certificate if they're hoping that their learners will receive certificates. Did that answer your question, Judy?
To some extent, just a quick add on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful. I just wanted to find out, in addition to if these modules can be downloaded and printed, and that's great. How can I put it? How does the certification work in that case? I'm assuming this system prints an automatic certificate once someone has gone through the requirements. How do we just manage that, because some things are physical?
Yeah, so the certificate requirements for the virtual workshop is that a student has to take the STRIPE registration survey, the pre and post tests of 1, 3, 4, and 17, and then a post-course survey. And once they complete those 8, 9, 10 items, then they will receive a certificate in the course and they can download that themselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Of course.
You all will probably remember that there was a paper-based entry option last year. So if you were doing an in-person workshop and your learners filled out their pre and post test on paper, the facilitators would then enter it in. By nature of the LMS being tied to individual users, that's not an option this year. And so we're really hoping that because people are using the LMS in some way, that all learners will be able to take the pre and post test on the LMS. But we understand if a workshop happened to be 100% in person and they were not able to access the LMS, then that is unfortunately just a downside of using the LMS. But overall, we believe it'll make everyone's lives easier. So I don't want to cut off questions because I know there's a lot, but I actually wanted to engage some experts in answering answers. And I think some questions will be answered that way. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to share my screen. 1 second. And I know I see Dr. Edward Dessau and Dr. Ian Cooper. And so I know they're two of the virtual workshop experts on this call as having experience delivering virtual workshops. And if there's anyone else in this meeting that has already delivered a virtual workshop, can you just either say something in the chat or give me a thumbs up? Because I would like for everyone to participate in this and let me know your experience. All right, maybe we have some shy people. I'm not seeing any thumbs up, but after a year of teaching in COVID, I'm sure many of you have had experience training over Zoom. So my first question, and I actually want to ask Edward this: how did you disseminate your course materials and Zoom meeting details to learners and facilitators?
Okay, thank you very much, Shayanne. So what we do in terms of sending the course materials to learners is that, one, during our preliminary visits, once we get focal persons in the various facilities or partner sites, they will collect information on the participants, including their email, WhatsApp contacts, and all that. So that information is sent to us. So prior to the program or to the training, we will send these materials by email. And in a few instances, sometimes they're a bit bulky to send by WhatsApp. In a few instances, we'll send some by WhatsApp, but typically mainly by email. Those that have problems, then we can share by WhatsApp. I think this is what we mainly do.
Thank you, Edward. I see Solomon has used different platforms. Solomon, what platforms have you used?
Oh, can
And
you hear
Sheila,
me?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, as my colleague said, we don't stick to one platform only to ensure that students have access and also ensure that they get the material. Like we use Telegram. At the moment, the students attend the module, especially during the COVID pandemic starting time. Our LMS system was not ready, and we stick to Telegram WhatsApp group. So instructors and students get the group, Telegram group, and students can get material from there. Email is also another option. But recently we are going to shift to learning management system. So I hope it will be launched soon, and we will also have that access.
Great, thank you. And I see Ian has posted materials in the Zoom chat. I know if you can actually send materials through Zoom or send a link through, send a link to online materials in the Zoom chat. And then I'm trying to scroll up, but I saw a response from Sheila. Let's see, where did it go? Sheila says sending Zoom meeting details through email and course materials through the online course. Jennifer says we made a WhatsApp group of all learners and key people and shared details prior. I like that. Oh, and phone calls can be made for increasing interaction. Okay, so great. I'm going to go on to the next question. Did you do an icebreaker activity? And anyone can answer this question. Maybe Edward, I'll start with you. Did you do an icebreaker activity when you were doing your STRIPE virtual workshops? I see Tandia said yes. Dr. Tandi, what have you? What has your icebreaker experience been?
Because we delivered this the COVID-19 module, so we just asked everyone how the COVID-19 has affected them and their families.
Yeah, I think asking a question that it gets people to connect is really meaningful and can break down some barriers over Zoom. Thank you.
So
anyone
again,
else?
The models, it will depend on who is facilitating, and then they all have various forms, asking questions, introducing something funny. So this is what it will depend on who the facilitator is, and because each session is a module, so it depends on who is facilitating it. But they'll ask questions. I'll just get something to get people free, and then we start off.
Thank you. Yeah, a change in version 3.0 is we encourage each module actually being opened with an icebreaker. But yeah, if it's a new day and a new group of people are working together, it'd be a good idea to do an icebreaker at the beginning of every time and leave it up to the facilitator to ask that question. Thanks, Edward. Does anyone have any? Oh, go ahead.
Ian's hand is up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm not seeing that. Ian, please go ahead.
No problem. Hi, Shayanne, and hi, everybody. Yeah, so because usually the groups are too big to try and get everyone to introduce themselves at the beginning can take a huge amount of time. So what we usually do is in the first breakaway group, we ask and we allow for time for people to introduce themselves to each other in the breakaway group and say a little bit about themselves before they actually get into the activity. Although sometimes, like with the COVID module, like Tandy mentioned, we would have a question around, the experience of COVID or something like that in the breakaways.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question. What was your workshop schedule? How long did you spend on one module, and how many modules did you do in a day? Ian, why don't you address this, and then I'll turn to Edward.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, we have been experimenting with a number of different ways of doing this. So when we were still face-to-face in the initial days with the HIV modules, we thought we'd do 8 over 2 days when we're having the 2-day workshops, and we found that it was far too much. With going online, we could not do that. We found that the amount of time and the concentration required for people to be online is just not feasible to do more. And in fact, we found that with running the COVID module, which takes about 3 hours in our format, that it actually worked better for us to do 2 separate 90-minute sessions on 2 separate days. Since then, we've been experimenting with the well-being and compassion module, which is also 3 hours, of running it as 3 hours, but with a break in the middle. And actually, we've had good feedback on that. But it's well described in terms of the extra concentration required for an online session, that to keep people's attention for longer periods of time is really problematic. And certainly my personal experience of attending conferences, I can't spend a day in a conference being on Zoom or Teams or whatever format. And quite a few that I've been part of actually recognize that and will split sessions across. We're busy running a HIV virtual workshop or course, really similar to what's going on on the LMS as a trial, where we're actually doing it 1 hour every second Friday. It was going to be every Friday, but it just related to availability of people. So we're actually doing an hour every second Friday, and we're going to see how long it's going to take us to get through the modules. So, I mean, my answer to that is, I think it has to be thought through, and it's variable. It will depend on your audience and depend on the module. So we have another one of the new to 2 hours that people are actually energized because of the nature of activities and actually want to carry on for longer. So it very much depends on your content and how you run it. So there's not a clear answer, but I think it's how many and how long depends on the situation.
A chat who asked if they could do eight modules in days, and so it's nice to hear you say that could be fatiguing for learners, and you might lose some people. And you inspired me to turn on my video, so I'll do the same. Hello, everyone. Dr. Edward, how did you set up the schedule for your workshops? Oh, we have lost him. Okay, I think we lost Dr. Dessa. So I will share what I know of their schedule. So they had done, so at Nest in Ghana, they did 2-day workshops. So different from what 2 modules in the morning, have a long break, do 2 modules in the evening, and then the next day do the same thing. If he comes back, I want to ask how that turned out, or if he would update that schedule. We will to be continued. We will find out. Oh, I'm just seeing a chat. Oh, Jennifer, would you like to explain your schedule, or if you want to come off mute? Okay, well, I'm going to read this response because I like this suggestion. So I think what it's saying is doing one module a day for 4 days. So that's a good way to space it out. Having a clear roadmap is helpful. So for learners to, I think, expect what is next. Day 1 and last days had Zoom. Other days, learners had to follow instructions in the activities, answer questions. Oh, I think I know it. Okay, this is saying maybe there was a modules completed every 4 days. So this may have been related to the LMS, which will be helpful for the online course. There's a comment, it depends on the number of hours of modules. I agree. There's nothing limiting everyone from doing all 17 modules, but of course that's gonna take you longer. Oh, and I see that Edward actually came back, so I'm gonna oh, but his audio is not connected. Well, maybe we'll come back to this. Oh, now maybe he can hear me. Edward, I wanted to ask you your experience. I know I told everyone that you all had piloted doing 8 modules in 2 days, and that you would do a morning, a long break, and an evening session. And I wanted to see how that went and if you would change your schedule at all.
Okay, so sincere apologies, connectivity issues. Yes, so when we started the training, we were trying to do, well, there are 4 modules, so we're doing 2 in a day. Okay, we tried doing all the 2 in a day, but usually after about 2.5 hours, people lose concentration and you are probably just speaking to devices. And you get the sense of that when you ask questions and then people are not contributing. So after a few of that, what seemed to be working for us, and that's what we have been using for up to date, is each day we have a morning session and an evening session. And the time for those sessions, we discuss that with the participants, and then we agree on what times are suitable, so that you do just about a module for each. So for instance, in the morning session, we just do 1 module. Now, we will add COVID to the 4 modules. So it means that we are having 5. So we look at a module that is not very long, because the modules all have times based on the STRIPE time allocation. Okay, so, and the time ranges from about 80 to 90 minutes. So the one that doesn't consume much, then we can combine that with the COVID module. Obviously, the longest, I think, is the TB module, and that takes a lot of time. So we are unable to combine any other module with that, because by the time you finish TB, then people are exhausted. Now, the other thing is that the times that are allocated for the modules on the STRIPE modules, invariably you exceed, because for instance, the changeover times and then people contributing and all that probably haven't been factored into. So that is what we do. So for the 4 modules, morning, evening, over 2 days. So we have 4 sessions and then we are done. Okay, and I think that seems to be working very well for us, and that's what we use. So I think you summarized it rightly.
Thank you. Actually, it's really helpful because I had misremembered and I said 8 modules in 2 days, which we heard from Ian that would not recommend that. So you are in agreement that, you know, maybe the 2 modules a day at max. Otherwise, you're going to lose learners. Thank you. And I agree. Breaks are so important. Okay, so I'm going to go on to this next question. Did you use any additional tools to make the workshops more interactive? So we've already heard from the SunStripe team about recommendations for making workshops interactive. I'm actually wondering if there's anyone from the Switch team at UKZN, because I know they use some additional tools. Is there anyone, or or anyone else? So I know if there is anyone from UKZN, they use Jamboard and Mentimeter. So there's tools out there online that there's different ways to like play games or create word clouds or ask surveys. And we do encourage you to get creative and use additional tools. And does anyone here have any examples of tools you've used to increase interaction with learners over Zoom?
Well, we haven't used any specific tools, but the main thing that we do is to make sure that questions are asked randomly, because I mean, you tend to know once the facilitator starts, he gets familiar with the names, and then we ask the questions. Now, during the breakout sessions, those are smaller numbers and it's much easier to manage that. So what we do is that for each breakout session, you have a rapporteur, then you have a leader, somebody that facilitates within the group. And we make sure that questions that are asked, and because a lot of the questions are directed at specific professions, if the question is asked on related to nursing, then we may encourage the nurses to contribute and so on and so forth. But we don't have any specific tool, but as much as possible, we try to reach out to everyone, that people get active. Some facilitators are very familiar with the people that are taking part, and they can actually mention names, and then you get people get alert because you can be called at any time. And then we try to encourage everyone to contribute, so that it's not like, obviously in a few instances, there are some people that will do almost all the talking, but you try to give opportunities to others so that they will also come up, and that has been found to be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a comment from Barbara about doing role play, recording it and sharing it among the participants. I like this. I also, we've heard this suggestion that, or with the feedback that role play over Zoom can be harder than in person, and to be kind of like break down people's barriers to wanting to do role play over Zoom. I think that some suggestions are having two facilitators demonstrate the role play first before going into breakout rooms, or sharing a YouTube video of a similar situation online. So if it's demonstrate poor communication, go find a YouTube video of poor healthcare provider communication. Get some laughs from your participants about how bad it was, and then set them into their rooms to do the role play. We really want you to make these workshops your own. Okay, I'm going to go into the next question. I think this is do you have any recommendations for limiting technical challenges experienced by facilitators and learners? So either anything you did to prepare or anything you did to troubleshoot technical problems in real time. Dr. Dessau, I will ask you to speak to this as well.
Well, so in terms of, let me start with the facilitators. Before this all training, we would usually have the trainer of trainers, and then the facilitators are taken through the modules, and we actually get them to do the facilitation. And during that trainer of trainers, once we finish a session, people are familiar with the modules, particularly for these ones that is a repetition of what we've done before. Then we'll ask people to look at how the presentation was done. Then we make the necessary, should I say, amendments or improvements before the actual training. So once that is done, then the person is aware, maybe I spent too much time here, I should have done this, and then with that in mind, it's much better. In terms of the learners, what we try to do is Once we know who is participating on a particular day, I mean, a reminder is sent to them a few days before, particularly the eve of the training. And one of the things is that they should look at the material. And secondly, we encourage them as much as possible to complete the pre-test before we start the training, because if this was in-person workshop, then that would have just been done before the workshop, but sometimes difficult with the online. So they will do that before they start. And I think as people go through the questions, then they are gingered to look through. I mean, obviously, sometimes there are a few people that, or some people that will not go through, but once we start, I think they join. So that is what we try to do to encourage people to participate or prepare for the workshops. I don't know if I've addressed what you wanted me to.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Cooper, do you have any recommendations?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I have any thing much to add. I mean, it's very difficult to prepare for the sort of things that are happening. I mean, load shedding, electricity power, this is probably one of the most difficult. And so, I mean, we do obviously for connectivity issues, I mean, get people to use the chat, and we in the beginning we like people to have their videos on, but then say it's fine, they can keep their videos off for the rest of the time, and issues like that. But I mean, I don't have any magical solutions to that, but that's why we're also exploring some of the asynchronous activity work, which others have also mentioned, and which the LMS will make possible.
Thank you. Yeah, so the lesson here is that technical challenges will happen, but you just take them with stride. Thank you, Dr. Cooper and Dr. Dessau and everyone else who shared their experience in the chat room, especially Jennifer. Thank you. I do want to make sure there's time for next steps. So I was hoping that hearing from other people's experience might be a little helpful. And just as a reminder, there are the three guides that SunStripe has developed for Stripe on a user guide for users just using Zoom, a user guide for hosts for hosting a Zoom workshop, and then a specific guide on how to do an interactive workshop that covers some of what we talked about. And I'm glad that we heard some elaboration today. So next steps, I've been seeing a lot of chat about access to modules. So we are working very hard over the next week to get everyone access to the virtual workshop. If you have an immediate need for your modules, like you're doing a virtual workshop this week, or you're doing a training of trainers this week, and you really need to see version 3.0, please email stripehiv@ucsf.edu and tell me or tell us the number of the module number you need. Otherwise, we're getting through. Everyone in their April reports told us whether they needed access to just the online course, the virtual workshop, or both. And so we're using what you told us to give you appropriate access. So we have 2 final webinars in our series, and that wraps up all of our central trainings led by AFREhealth. We're going to skip a week, and on May 17th and 18th, so Monday and Tuesday, we're going to do similar to what we did today, but it's going to focus on the online course, which is the asynchronous course. The Monday webinar will be for facilitators, for e-learning coordinators, and it will go over how do you make course modifications to your course. And then the one on Tuesday will be for facilitators, and that's how are you going to facilitate that course. So how are you going to respond to discussion posts, review submitted answers, check that people are participating. I think that is it for me. We might just have a couple minutes for any last questions. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone, and thank you, Maeve and Sebastien. I'll stop sharing my screen. I will say, even after the final 2 webinars, we are planning to kind of come back together and have another just open QA session. And so I think thanks to the positive feedback on today's Q&A, and we want to continue doing that and learn about real world solutions. Judy or Mariki, would you like to say anything in closing?
Thank you very much, Shayanne. This has been very helpful, especially for us as schools of nursing who have joined in 2021 moving forward. And we encourage AFREhealth to host these, especially Q&As, periodically. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because this will be very helpful as we move along. Perhaps we would also make a request for those who've gone ahead of us to help and hold our hands as we also kind of start. So this is very nice to see some of the more of the veterans, Ian Cooper, Edward. We're glad to know that you're there to help us in case we do need some support. Many of the nursing schools are carrying out this training physically. So I'm very keen to see how to link the virtual and the physical in a seamless way to ensure that nothing is lost and that the full richness of the training comes down to the students. Otherwise, my thanks to all of you.
Thanks, Judy. Shayanne, I just wondered if Iranians could just introduce Roger and Bernard, and that them just show their faces and say what they will be doing, because they will be communicating with all the people on the call as from now on.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mariki. So we have 2 team members who have just recently joined the AFREhealth team at the Secretariat, and then both would be supporting the STRIPE project, specifically interacting with us all on this call. So we have Roger Lawrence, who is the LMS administrator. So he will be interacting with most of us in that capacity. So I don't know, you can show your face.
Hello.
Lawrence.
Hi, so I'm Roger, I'm the LMS administrator. I'm here to provide every technical support needed when it starts. So I think I'll be the main central point for every support and every communication that I have to also deliver as well. All right.
So we have Bernard Kumson. So Bernard, you can also show your face and then introduce yourself. Bernard is going to be supporting with programming, monitoring, and evaluation.
Can't hear him.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so sorry. Once again, my name is Sebastien, and I'm project M&E assistant to this STRIPE program, and I'm excited to be on board. I'll be providing programming assistance, mostly working under Arrhenius, and also on M&E system guiding this program. So I'll be looking forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, thank you, Bernard and Roger. Mariki, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I think this Q&A session really worked well. It's a format that we will follow in future. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.